everybody, and welcome to Black Tea. This is the interview series all about Black women in advertising, presented by Muse by Cleo. I am your host, as usual, Michelle Lawrence, and I'm so excited to be here today with Beliansh Assefa. Beliansh, hello, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Please tell people what you do and where you're based.
I am based in New York City. I am a music producer and supervisor at Townhouse. Townhouse is a production company that does a lot of the work for Gray advertising. So anytime you see music in an ad, whether it's a licensed track or an original composition, I oversee that process from creative ideation to the final licensing stages.
Okay, cool. How did you find your way into this particular career path? How did you get into advertising?
I did not expect to ever work in advertising, if I'm honest. I studied international development and social change and was on track to work for the United Nations or something like that. And then I let my musical side kind of influence me more. I realized I could pursue a creative job and decided to study more about the music business and try to get in there to make change. I worked at a music publisher for about 2 years, and then I ended up in the sync licensing department. So at the music publisher, that department's job is to proactively pitch music. And since we're based in New York, and New York is so advertising focused, our LA team did a lot of film and television, and then our New York team did a lot of advertising. So actively pitching musician, artist catalogs, and also licensing music. And so after about 2 years there, I met a ton of people in New York. I encourage everyone to just go outside and talk to people, because that's, I think, how you get a job in New York. And after some references and some phone calls, I got a call from the music team at Townhouse, Gray, and I've been there for 2 years.
Since you have stumbled your way into advertising, how do you feel like your unique POV as a Black woman has influenced the way you work in this space, the way that you're creative, the way that you kind of show up in the work?
I think obviously we want to be our authentic selves as much as possible. And then there's also a level of professionality that still needs to be maintained. And I think the concept of professionality is very white.
Yeah, what people assume is professional is typically white.
Right. The standards are created by a white culture is the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And right. So it's not easy, but I mean, luckily, being in the music department, I have 2 people on my team who are, in touch with music and culture and understand how important, Black music and Black culture is. And so that helps. I think that it's challenging. I think oftentimes we have to kind of try to convince people and explain to people of what is culturally relevant or important. And so I try to just be professional, but be myself, maintain relationships, and then, I don't know, kind of explain my culture and who I am.
How do you think the work is different as a result of you being in that role as opposed to maybe someone who is not of color?
Yeah, especially, with music, I'm automatically, my first instinct just to pull from a pool of artists or music or tracks that just, I think are just aren't a part of most people's repertoire. Mm-hmm. And it's not just I'm just recommending Diana Ross. I'm thinking about obscure Black artists globally who I might have not just obscure, but also even mainstream ones. Asake is a African superstar, and I doubt many people in my office know who that is. I show up with a vast variety of different recommendations and cultural experiences. I'm African. I'm East African, born and raised in the Midwest. I've lived all over. And so I understand that, Blackness is multifaceted and it's not monolithic. And there's so many different iterations and cultures and things to pull from. And I think that, I'm not going to say I'm not an expert on Blackness, but I have a very diverse understanding, I think. But coming into the room, I think we enriched the place already. And then on top of that, if we have, a dedication to our culture and our values and curiosity, then we turn it up even more, right?
Yeah, for sure. I love that. And I love that you're also bringing a little bit of that Midwest energy. I think a lot of people, I hear often like, oh, in the Midwest, they don't really know what's going on, or, all of the energy is on the coasts. And I think that there's an underestimation of like how culturally tapped in people are in the middle of the country.
I think people overlook how many immigrants and how much diversity can exist in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
Like I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, and I think it's Blacker and more diverse than people would ever imagine. I think it's way more of a city than a lot of people would imagine. The high school I went to was like this open campus high school that was just like full of like all like just like really like that like diversity photo that you see in like the university magazines. Like It was like all my friends were different. There sometimes feels like there's a delay from like trends on the East and West Coast whenever it comes to the middle of America. But I think there definitely are people in the Midwest who are tapped in, I think that the history of the Midwest is really interesting as well. If you think about like migration movements, like, post-slavery, a lot of folks from the South, Black people from the South migrated north, and Kansas City was a major stop. I mean, like it was a part of like the jazz circuit. Like jazz was huge in Kansas City, Missouri. There's like some sick musicians, like whether it's from like St. Louis, like Smino's from St. Louis. Like it's not just Chicago. Chicago's a bed of rich music history. It is slept on.
Yeah.
I think the other issue is like brain drain, right? Like people leave the Midwest and go to New York and California, and like half the music industry I saw is like from Ohio, and I'm like, what if we stayed in our respective cities? That'd look very different than.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because I would never think, oh, I need my music producer to be a history nerd. But in hearing the way that you talk about music, I can see the value in that, like 100%. You bring a sense of past, of like a storied knowledge to your search, I feel like. Do you feel like your interest in history has an influence on how you work?
For sure. I think that like, especially depending on if your spot, like the story that you're trying to tell, if it's based in a certain city or within a certain culture, the ability to like, not only have those stories, historical knowledge to pull from, but the interest to like do research.
Yeah.
Like we recently got Modelo as a brand. And so I'm not Latina, but my interest in history and research has made me dive in and like learn everything I can about Latin music, whether it's like cumbia, norteño, banda, like what is like even more specifically, like what is Mexican music, and like diving into that to try to authentically create Mexican music, and if they want to go beyond Mexican music, Latina music for that brand. I think it definitely is really important.
I mean, music is all up and through who you are. I can see that. But if you had to work in another department in advertising besides music production, what would it be and why?
I think that being a creative would be really fun, like a creative director or a copywriter. I mean, they get to like one of the best, like coolest skills I've learned in my past 2 years is like building a deck, because I mean, that's technically not my job, but I'm like, I want to like do cool, culturally relevant ideas. So I've been like putting together decks and like sharing them with our creative team, and in some cases getting them to the brands directly. And so I think just like being able to put together a story and an idea and visually be able to like sell that to someone, convince someone, and then make it happen is like, it's really awesome. Like
I think creatives would be happy to have you. Do you have any heroes that you look up to right now, whether inside or out of advertising, just in general, who is really inspiring to you right now?
Someone who's always been really inspiring to me forever is Toni Morrison.
Oh, okay.
I love her. She's not in advertising. Amazing storyteller. Watching interviews, she talks about how like, she always starts with like the question before she tells a story. Listening to her speak is amazing. Her stories are just always amazing. Really adore, like Barry Jenkins is sick. And then Nicholas Bertel, a composer who does a lot of sick film scores. I mean, Stevie Wonder.
Yeah, that's indisputable there. Outside of music, what are your favorite sounds right now?
I love birds. That sounds so weird, but I love birds.
No, it's weird. Yeah.
But just like waking up in the morning or like walking through the park and being able to hear, like, I like try to like, I'm like
get your bird calling on.
I like to like sit in the park, and if I like have a croissant, like if I have any snack, I like to like throw them to the bird. I had a birthday recently, and we do this thing we like ulating, and I think a lot of Arab cultures do it as well as African cultures, where you go like really loudly, and I've been doing that a lot, and like I love that sound. It just reminds me of like celebration, pride.
Before I get you out of here, I have one question that I like to ask to everybody, and that is, are there any Black-owned companies or Black-owned products that you're really loving right now?
The designer's name Alison Kaba. It's my favorite bikini swimsuit ever. It's like super soft on one side, meshy on one side, and it's like a wrap bikini top. #1 best purchase ever.
Beliansh, thank you so much for coming on Black Tea. I really have appreciated your story and hearing about the passion that you have for your work. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Michelle.
And to everybody out there, thank you so much for watching Black Tea. Please go to musebycleo.com/Black Tea to catch up on all the other episodes that you may have missed. And we will see y'all on the next one. Bye.